You know that feeling when you check your bank account and there's like $37 in there and rent's due in a week and you've got this weird anxiety sitting in your chest because you should have more saved by now. You're working, you're trying, you're not out here buying designer handbags or whatever, but somehow the money just evaporates. And the worst part, you can't even really explain where it went. It's not like you made one big stupid purchase, it's just gone. A coffee here, a subscription there, that thing you convinced yourself you needed on Amazon at 11 p.m. And suddenly you're back at square one, staring at double digits in your checking account, wondering why building wealth feels impossible when everyone on the internet makes it look so easy. Here's the thing though, and this is what nobody really talks about. Your first $1,000 is genuinely the hardest money you'll ever save. Not because of the math is stupid simple, but because everything in our world is designed to keep you exactly where you are. Your brain is working against you, the economy is working against you, and honestly, the way most people talk about money makes it worse. They'll tell you to just save more or stop buying lattes, like that's some profound financial wisdom, when really, building your first 1,000 requires you to completely rewire how you think about money, time, and honestly, yourself. My name is Emmy, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human behavior, and why some people seem to naturally accumulate wealth while others, smart, hardworking people, stay trapped in the same financial patterns for years. And what I've realized is that your first $1,000 isn't really about the money at all. It's about proving to yourself that you can do something most people never actually do. It's about breaking a cycle. It's about learning to hold on to something instead of letting it slip through your fingers. And once you do it once, everything changes. Not because $1,000 is life-changing money, it's not, but because you've fundamentally shifted your relationship with your own financial potential. So this isn't going to be one of those videos where I tell you to get a side hustle or sell your stuff or cut out avocado toast. I mean, sure, those things might help, but they're not the thing. The thing is understanding why you haven't done it yet, what's actually stopping you, and how to build a system that works with your psychology instead of against it. Because here's what I've learned. The people who successfully build wealth aren't necessarily smarter or more disciplined. They just understand a few key things about how money actually works, and more importantly, how they work with money. And by the end of this, you're going to understand them too. The real reason you don't have $1,000 saved. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. If you're living in a developed country, making any kind of income, and you don't have $1,000 saved, it's probably not because you can't. It's because you haven't. And I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me here because this distinction actually matters. See, most people approach saving money like it's this passive thing that just happens when you have extra money left over. They'll say things like, "Oh, I'll start saving once I get that raise," or "I'll save whatever's left at the end of the month." But here's the problem with that strategy. There's never anything left. There's never extra money, because your spending will always expand to fill whatever income you have. Economists call this lifestyle inflation, but really, it's just human nature. You get more money, you feel like you can afford more things, so you buy more things. It's not a moral failing, it's just what happens. I remember when I first started making decent money, like enough that I should have been able to save easily, and I was genuinely confused about where it all went. I wasn't being irresponsible, I was just living. Going out with friends sometimes, ordering delivery when I was tired, buying decent versions of things instead of the cheapest option. None of it felt extravagant, but it all added up. And at the end of the month, there was nothing left. Not because I couldn't afford to save, but because I hadn't made saving a non-negotiable part of my financial life. And that's the first real shift you need to make. Understanding that saving isn't something you do with leftover money. It's something you do first, before you have a chance to spend it. Which brings us to what might be the single most important concept in personal finance. And honestly, it sounds so boring that most people tune it out. But if you only take one thing from this video, let it be this. Pay yourself first. I know, you've heard this before. It sounds like something your dad would say, or like generic advice from a financial guru in a suit. But the reason this principle is repeated everywhere is because it actually works. And most people never implement it because they don't understand why it works. Here's the psychology. When you pay yourself first, meaning you automatically move money into savings the moment you get paid, before you pay bills, before you buy anything, you remove the decision from your daily life. You're not relying on discipline or willpower at the end of the month when you're tired and stressed. You're not trying to find money to save. You've already saved it. The decision was made once, and now it just happens automatically. And your brain, your life, your spending, they adapt to what's left. You genuinely don't miss money you never saw in your checking account. This is how wealthy people think about money, by the way. They don't have more willpower than you. They've just structured their financial life so the right things happen automatically, and the wrong things require effort. Most people have it backwards. They make spending automatic, subscriptions, one-click purchases, saved payment information, and they make saving require conscious effort every single time. And then they wonder why they're always broke. So if you want to build your first $1,000, the very first thing you need to do is set up automatic transfers. I don't care if it's $50 per paycheck or $10 per week. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a savings account. Ideally one at a different bank so you can't see it every time you log in. And just let it happen. Don't think about it. Don't negotiate with yourself about whether you can afford it this week. Just let it happen. Because once it's happening automatically, you're already saving money. You've already broken the cycle. The hardest part is over. The invisible money leaks and why you can't feel them. Okay, so you've set up automatic savings. Great. But if you're like most people, you're probably thinking, sure, but I barely have enough money as it is. Where am I supposed to find this money to save? And that's a fair question. But here's what I've noticed. Most people genuinely have no idea where their money goes. Like, they have a vague sense. They know they spend money on rent, food, gas, whatever. But the actual numbers, the real breakdown, most people are completely guessing. And this isn't a judgment thing. It's just that tracking every dollar you spend is boring and tedious, and nobody wants to do it. So we don't. We operate on vibes. We feel like we're being responsible. We feel like we're not overspending. And meanwhile, there's like $300 a month just vanishing into tiny transactions we don't even remember. I want you to try something, just for 1 week. Track every single purchase you make, and I mean every purchase. The coffee, the parking, the app you downloaded, the $2.99 for extra cloud storage, the DoorDash order, the random thing at Target you didn't plan to buy, all of it. And at the end of the week, add it up. I promise you, you'll be shocked. Not because you're making huge, irresponsible purchases, but because the small stuff adds up in ways that are genuinely hard to comprehend until you see it written down. This is what I call invisible money leaks. And they're invisible specifically because each individual purchase seems totally reasonable in the moment. $5 for coffee? That's fine. $12 for lunch because you didn't pack anything? Makes sense, you were busy. $8 for that streaming service you haven't used in 3 months? Whatever, it's only $8. But here's the thing. It's never just one $5 coffee. It's 5 $5 coffees a week, which is $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year on coffee. And I'm not saying don't drink coffee. I'm saying be aware that you're making a choice to spend $1,200 a year on coffee, because awareness changes everything. When you're aware of where your money actually goes, when you can look at real numbers instead of guessing, you suddenly have power. You can make informed decisions. You can look at your spending and go, okay, I spend $150 a month on food delivery, and honestly, that doesn't feel worth it. I could cut that in half and barely notice, and suddenly I have $75 more per month to save. That's $900 a year. You're almost at your first $1,000 just from being more intentional about delivery apps. But here's the crucial part. You're not depriving yourself. You're not white-knuckling through life, refusing to enjoy anything. You're just becoming conscious of the trade-offs. Every dollar you spend is a choice not to save that dollar. And when you're not aware of the choices you're making, you end up spending money on things that don't actually matter to you, while simultaneously feeling like you can't afford the things that do. This is why I hate the whole stop buying lattes discourse, by the way. It's not about the lattes. It's about whether the latte is genuinely adding value to your life, or whether it's just a habitual purchase you make without thinking. If your morning coffee is this ritual you love that genuinely improves your day, keep it, enjoy it. But if you're spending $5 on mediocre coffee from some random shop just because it's there and you're tired, that's an invisible money leak. That's money evaporating without you even noticing. The solution isn't deprivation, it's consciousness. It's making your spending visible so you can align it with what you actually care about. The survival mode trap. Now let's talk about something that makes building your first $1,000 even harder, and it's something most personal finance advice completely ignores: the psychological weight of living paycheck to paycheck. Because here's the thing. When you're in survival mode financially, when you're genuinely stressed about making rent or buying groceries, your brain literally works differently. You're not thinking about the future. You can't. All your mental energy is focused on getting through right now. And in that state, saving money feels impossible. Not just difficult, impossible. Because saving requires you to prioritize future you over present you. And when present you is stressed and struggling, future you doesn't exist yet. This is called scarcity mindset, and it's brutal. When you feel like you don't have enough money, enough time, enough resources, your brain gets stuck in this short-term thinking mode where you can't see beyond the immediate crisis. And the cruel irony is that being broke makes you make worse financial decisions, which keeps you broke, which keeps you in scarcity mindset. It's a cycle that's really, really hard to break. So if you're in this place right now, if you're reading this and thinking, yeah, Emmy, this all sounds great, but I literally can't afford to save anything. I get it. I'm not going to tell you to just change your mindset like that's some simple thing you can do. But I will tell you this. Even the smallest amount of savings starts to break the cycle. Even $20 in a savings account shifts something psychologically. It's proof that you can do it. It's proof that you're not completely stuck. And that tiny shift, that feeling of having even a little bit of cushion, it changes how you think about money. This is why I'm obsessed with the idea of starting small. Because if saving money feels overwhelming, if $1,000 feels impossible, then don't aim for $1,000 yet. Aim for $50, just $50. One dinner out, one nice thing you were going to buy but didn't. And once you have $50 saved, aim for $100, then $250, then $500. Each milestone proves to your brain that this is possible, that you're capable of this, and suddenly $1,000 doesn't feel like this impossible mountain anymore. It feels like the next logical step. The income side, because sometimes cutting isn't enough. Okay, so we've talked about the psychology, the automatic savings, the invisible leaks. But let's be real for a second. Sometimes the problem genuinely is income. Sometimes you're not overspending on stupid stuff, you're just not making enough. And all the budgeting tips in the world won't change the math if the math doesn't work. So let's talk about the other side of the equation, making more money. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Emmy, if I could just magically make more money, don't you think I would? And yes, obviously. But here's what I've noticed. A lot of people underestimate their ability to increase their income in small ways. They're waiting for the big promotion, the perfect new job, the life-changing opportunity. And meanwhile, there are like dozens of small ways to bring in extra money that they're completely ignoring because it doesn't feel significant enough. But here's the thing about building your first $1,000. It doesn't matter where the money comes from. It all counts the same. So if you can make an extra $100 this month from selling stuff you don't use anymore, that's $100 closer to your goal. If you can pick up 2 extra shifts at work, or do some freelance work on the weekend, or help someone with something you're good at and get paid for it, that's real money. It might not feel like a real income increase, but $200 extra per month is $2,400 per year. That's more than double your first $1,000. The mistake people make is thinking too big. They're waiting for the perfect side hustle, the business idea that's going to change everything. But you don't need a business. You just need a few hundred extra dollars. And there are so many ways to get that. Selling old electronics, doing odd jobs, freelancing, babysitting, dog walking, whatever. None of it has to be your passion or your calling. It just has to generate money that you can immediately save. And here's the beautiful part. Once you hit your first $1,000, once you prove to yourself that you can do this, you suddenly have options. You have a tiny buffer. You have breathing room. And from that place of having a little bit saved instead of nothing, everything becomes easier. You can make better decisions because you're not in panic mode. You can invest in things that might increase your income further. You can take small risks that might pay off. The first 1,000 is the hardest because you're building from zero. After that, the momentum carries you. The compound effect, or why $1,000 is really just the beginning. So let's say you do everything I've talked about. You set up automatic savings, you track your spending, you cut the invisible leaks, maybe you bring in some extra income. And after a few months, maybe 3, maybe 6, depending on your situation, you hit it. You have $1,000 in your savings account. You actually did it. Now what? Because here's what most people don't tell you. $1,000 is simultaneously life-changing and completely inadequate. It's life-changing because you've proven something to yourself. You've broken a pattern. You've built a skill. The skill of saving, of delaying gratification, of prioritizing future you. And that skill is going to serve you for the rest of your life. But it's also inadequate because, $1,000 doesn't actually solve that many problems. It's not enough for a real emergency. It's not enough to quit your job or move or make a big life change. It's a start. It's a foundation. But it's not the finish line. And this is where the compound effect comes in. Because once you have your first $1,000, the second $1,000 is easier. You already know how to do it. You already have the systems in place. You already have the habits built. And the third $1,000? Even easier. And suddenly you're looking at $5,000 in savings, then $10,000. And you're thinking, wait, how did this happen? It happened because you started, because you took the first step, because you proved to yourself that you're the kind of person who can save money. And once you believe that about yourself, everything else flows from there. This is what wealthy people understand that most people don't. Building wealth is about systems and habits, not about making one big perfect decision. It's about doing the boring, unsexy thing consistently over time. It's about the compound effect of small choices adding up to massive results. Your first $1,000 is teaching you how to be wealthy. Not because $1,000 makes you wealthy, but because the process of saving $1,000, the discipline, the intentionality, the systems, those are the exact same skills you need to save $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever your goal is. The amount changes, the process doesn't. The psychological shift, what changes when you have savings? I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in personal finance, the emotional experience of having savings. Because I think a lot of people imagine that having $1,000 saved will feel like this huge achievement, this moment of validation. And it is, kind of. But the real change is more subtle and more profound than that. When you have savings, even just a small amount, the world feels different. You're calmer, you sleep better. That low-level anxiety that's always humming in the background when you're broke, it fades. Not completely, obviously. $1,000 isn't going to solve all your problems. But there's this shift that happens when you know you have a buffer. When you know that if something goes wrong, if your car breaks down, if you need to go to the dentist, if you lose your job, you're not immediately screwed. You have options. You have time. And that feeling, that sense of having breathing room, it changes how you make decisions. You stop operating from a place of fear and desperation. You start thinking more clearly. You stop making those panicky, short-term decisions that end up costing you more in the long run. You can afford to wait for a sale instead of buying the first thing you see. You can afford to look for a better job instead of clinging to one you hate just because you need the paycheck. You can afford to invest in yourself, in education, in skills, in health, because you're not constantly in crisis mode. This is the real value of your first $1,000. It's not the money itself. It's the psychological freedom it gives you. It's the shift from scarcity to sufficiency. And once you experience that shift, you'll do anything to maintain it. You'll protect your savings. You'll keep building it. Because you never want to go back to that feeling of having nothing, of being one emergency away from disaster. The truth about discipline, it's not what you think. Let me tell you something that might sound contradictory. Building your first $1,000 requires discipline, but it doesn't require you to be a disciplined person. What I mean is this: discipline isn't a personality trait. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's a system. It's about setting up your life so the right behaviors happen automatically, and the wrong behaviors require effort. The people you think of as disciplined, The ones who seem to effortlessly save money, eat healthy, exercise regularly, they're not relying on willpower. They've just structured their environment to make good decisions easy and bad decisions hard. They've automated their savings so they don't have to think about it. They've removed junk food from their house so they're not constantly resisting temptation. They've made the things they want to do the path of least resistance. This is how you build your first $1,000. Not by becoming a different person, not by suddenly developing superhuman willpower, but by setting up systems that work for you instead of against you. Automatic transfers, separate savings accounts, apps that round up your purchases and save the difference. Whatever works for your life, your brain, your situation. Because here's what nobody tells you about willpower. It's a limited resource. You only have so much of it in a day. And if you're using it all to resist buying things, to remember to transfer money to savings, to track every purchase manually, you're going to fail. Not because you're weak, because you're human. And humans are really, really bad at sustaining behavior that requires constant conscious effort. So stop trying to be disciplined. Start trying to be smart about building systems that make the right things happen automatically. The final push. You're closer than you think. Look, I know this video has been long. I know I've thrown a lot at you. But I want to end with something important. Something that might be the most crucial thing I say. You can do this. I know you've tried before. I know you've had moments where you had a little bit saved and then something came up and you had to spend it and you felt like a failure. I know you felt stuck, like everyone else figured out this money thing and you're just somehow behind. I know you've compared yourself to people who seem to have it all together financially and wondered what's wrong with you. But here's the truth. Most people don't have it together. Most people are barely getting by, living paycheck to paycheck, pretending everything's fine. The ones who are building wealth, they're not smarter than you. They're not more deserving. They just started. They took the first step. They saved their first $100, then their first $500, then their first $1,000. And they kept going. And you can too. Your first $1,000 is waiting for you. It's sitting in all those small purchases you don't think about, all those invisible money leaks, all those hours you could trade for a little extra income. It's there. You just have to decide to go get it. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, today, before you close this video and forget about it and go back to your regular life, set up one automatic transfer. Just one. Even if it's $10 a week. Even if it feels too small to matter, set it up, make it automatic. And then let time do its thing. Because a year from now, you're going to wish you started today. So start today. Start small. Start imperfectly. But start. Your future self is counting on you.